This is the Rebel Scum Podcast. Available in video on YouTube and audio wherever you listen to your podcasts. Every week, Brock and James talk the latest rumors, news, and theories from a galaxy far, far away. Support us on Patreon for exclusive offers and join the Star Wars discussion. Patreon.com/RebelScumPodcast. Here are your hosts, Brock and James.
You're always scum. Rebel Scum.
Rebel Scum! Happy New Year, scumbags! It's Ranking Star Wars because you know what? It's January 1st, and this is how we start the year. This is our 8th version of Ranking Star Wars. This is episode 8, so this is the Last Jedi of the Ranking Star Wars, and I know it will be the best. It'll be the most divisive ranking ever, and I agree with Desi. Don't talk till you're announced. I'm Brock. This is... You're muted. 8 years.
Yeah. My cat jumped on me during the intro, and I was like, oh boy.
I was wondering why I couldn't hear your voice. And we have wonderful extra people today.
We do.
Right beside James, we got Heidi. Right below me, we got Disney, Desi. And new to the ranking, we got Sooner Thrawn in the bottom right corner.
Sooner Thrawn is the Rose Tico of this ranking show. Fans are gonna love.
I'm just looking over the corner, kind of like Darth Plagueis. They cut me off.
Accolade. Oh man, should put the graphic up. Rankings, we've done this 8 times, and we haven't had a movie in 5 years. But we were saying before we recorded, we've had 3 Sonic movies and a Sonic TV show in that time period. And so we're getting a new movie, though. Not next year. We got another year to wait before we get it. But we're getting one. It's slowly coming.
Stuck at 11 movies still, but soon it will grow. I was thinking about go ahead.
No, go on.
I was thinking about him I really hope it doesn't get to the point of Andrew's ranking Marvel movies where it's 75 movies and I'm like, what's the point? I'm like, you're gonna put Infinity War up here and Eternals down here.
That's why I'm saying because I combine all the lists and I'm like, you know what? I'm also okay with there just being 11 because my math's not that strong. I'm sure I have to double check the list like Santa Claus, and I got it's a tough job. I spend my whole Christmas day doing this. For you people.
You people. So go on to patreon.com/Rebel Scum Podcast.
Look, it's fun to do these lists because this one is the definitive ranking list.
Yeah.
This is George Lucas recognizes this one. And Bob Iger is actually making January 1st Rebel Scum Podcast ranking day at Disney World.
Wait, which day?
January 1st.
You screwed up. It should be June 21st.
Should be, but he doesn't know that. He doesn't care about us individually, just our rankings.
Oh, gotcha. Nice.
We're having a cat off right now. Oh, bye, Dusty. Oh, digging nails into me. Anyway, no, this is fun. It's just we go around. We had 67 people podcast. 67 people, podcasters, YouTubers, Patreons, and more. Putting in their list. Am I not coming on here? No one can hear me?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, good.
No, it was me, I think.
Okay. Anyway, so it's a lot of fun doing this. So you guys want to get right to it?
Let's do it.
Anyone have any, I'll go from Brock down, any expectations for this list this year before we get into it, Brock?
Honestly, I hope it's not like the last few years. If anything, if none of my movies are where they're supposed to be, I'll be okay. Just something slightly different.
Yeah, that may not happen because once again, we don't have any new movies.
The Last Jedi, #1. It's going to happen this year. Have faith.
I just want to say that with the circus scene now in Skeleton Crew, I think the holiday special should be on the list.
Agreed.
Well, this is just theatrical, so if someone throws it in the theater, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Well, technically, the Caravan of Courage movies were in the theaters in Europe.
In Europe, yes. This is
They
North American
were?
release only.
The Courage of
We have to find out.
Oh.
All right, so we're going to get to this. And Desi, this year I took into account how you do your rankings. So all of the other movies were number 11.
Do you not typically?
No, usually I can't remember I can't remember what I do, but this year, yes, it was. I think I just don't score them. This year I get them all 11, so that probably actually made it worse for The Last Jedi. But let's go right into number 11, with a bullet. Number 11 with a bullet. People don't like this movie. I do. Solo.
Oh no!
Star Wars story.
Oh,
Make sure I spell
no.
that. Yeah, I guess the ranking Star Wars graphic is in a bad spot. But yes, Solo, a Star Wars story. Heidi, I'll start with you. You put this -7. No, I'm joking. Number 11 came in, and like when I say with a bullet, I mean there was space between 1 and 2, and there was space between 10 and 11. And yeah, people were not kind to this movie.
I mean, I put it. Let me explain. Just because I put the prequels at the bottom does not mean I hate the prequel. Like I said, just because something isn't my favorite doesn't mean I hate it. I still like it. But yeah, I usually have this right before the sequel trilogy. I mean, the prequel trilogy. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
the prequel trilogy. Sorry. So I think this is usually my number 7. I have to look, but yeah, I don't think this movie gets the love it deserves. It's just a fun ride. If you go in not expecting Shakespeare, I think you're going to enjoy it. No, it's not Andor the movie, but I think it's a fun movie, and I think it deserves a lot more love. And if you just go along and enjoy the ride, you can enjoy any of these films, even the ones you have placed at number 11. So,
Sooner.
Yeah, I like all these movies just because of how we rank them. They all have good scenes and good ideas, and they're all better than most out there. But we're ranking the movies, so. And I really like this. This is one of my. I put this right in the middle. It's one of the, just right below the original and Rogue One, and I believe I have it about 6. And I think it's really good and fun. And I loved Woody Harrelson. He was great in the movie.
Yeah.
So it definitely is a lot higher for me than the last. So definitely don't agree with that.
I'm putting it at number 1 next year just to spell Desi.
I mean, I ranked it last, but I also ranked everything last except for my favorite movie. But I love this movie. I think that it is underappreciated for what it is. I think people didn't get Alden, I think, Ehrenreich. I'm probably not saying that correctly. But people didn't give Alden a chance just because he's not Harrison Ford. But I thought he actually did a really good job. So I love this movie. I don't think it deserves the hate that it gets, but I also understand why it is last. I probably wouldn't have put it there if I was doing an actual ranking.
Brock?
I mean, this is a great movie. And it was like, I guess Rogue One is the first Star Wars story, but like, this one is like, it always felt like this is their first actual attempt, you know? It's sort of like, what if we just did a Star Wars movie that kind of doesn't really attach to it, even though it does, you know what I mean? Like, and then also it has the asterisks of like, it was supposed to be Lord and Miller, and they got yanked, and they had to make something really, really fast, which I think they still delivered. I mean, Darth Maul coming back into a movie is just like, yeah, okay, let's go. Let's make another movie. But here we are.
If we're doing a bunch of TV shows, I would love to see a spinoff of this where we see Kira and Darth Maul and Crimson Dawn. Like, I want a Crimson Dawn TV show, please.
Yes.
Well, that would be great. Yes, that would be awesome.
I just think.
I was just saying, I wouldn't be surprised if I wouldn't be surprised if they show up in Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
And this one's always kind of meant. I always liked it, but it meant something because when it came out, that was the first movie Star Wars in a theater that me and my daughter went to. So that's awesome. That's pretty cool. I always remember that one. And but I'd love to see the TV show, and for sure.
I was pregnant, so does that count as the first show I saw with my son?
Sure.
Did they start kicking? It was like, this is that thing he always says.
This is why he loves Darth Maul so much. He saw it.
Yeah, the very.
The Doppler was wah wah. Bah, bah, bah.
I mean, you see the cutscenes, and there's some interesting scenes that were taken out, like him under review of why he tried to rescue his pilots instead of just killing them, which is what the Empire wanted to do. It shows, like, from what we see, it goes from him saying, "Oh, you're gonna love the Empire," whatever, to him in the battlefield in the mud, and but they cut out the reason why he ended up in that situation. And I think the original cut was a comedy.
Yeah.
Not really comedy, but it was more humorous, maybe more like Skeleton Crew humorous.
Yeah,
I've seen that deleted scene. I wish they'd have kept that. That would have been a little bit better. But I mean, isn't it just guaranteed that every Star Wars movie? Well, we started with these directors, and then
I don't know if you heard, but now, like, apparently the new Sean Levy Star Wars movie is going to shoot in like September, and it's about Rey. So the first Rey movie is not going to be the Rey movie that they announced to be the Rey movie.
What?
Only Star Wars can pull this one off. Yeah, that's anyway. Let's go to number 10. Sorry, 10. And this one I think will make most of you happy, and it is the last Rise of Skywalker.
Wow.
This one was a far drop from a few years ago when it was much higher on the list. People again not taking on Rise of Skywalker in the year since its release, and I think it is the best Star Wars movie we've ever gotten, with the word Skywalker in the title. I think it's a fun movie. I still think it's fun, and I'll fight anybody that says otherwise because I don't care. Heidi?
I know Disney does this. I still like it, but I know she likes about 15 minutes of it, and I'm sure we know what 15 minutes she likes of it.
When Ben Solo dies,
no, right before
when Rey says Skywalker, Rey Skywalker. Those are the two moments she says are her top two Star Wars moments of all time.
No, sir.
She just leaves the stream, just gone.
She's like the mom who. She's like the mom who turns off Old Yeller right after the family before they have to put him down. Again, it's just a fun movie. Another problem that I have with this as the prequels and again with Solo is just some things were too rushed. I think if it had been two movies, or if I guess I love Last Jedi, but I think Last Jedi would have done better as a standalone film, and Rise of Skywalker divided into two movies might have been a lot better. I enjoyed it, but there was just too much taken out, and the Force the Force ghosts at the end just being voices to me is just a cop out. They had such an opportunity and they blew it, and I wish they hadn't done that.
Yeah.
Supposedly they shot something and it was taken out to do the flying stormtrooper scene. I don't know, but
which was I think that was the marketing, wasn't it? Like that scene was
right, and they didn't sell anything.
Oh, they fly now? Oh, they fly now.
and another thing, they had an evil R2 droid toy, and it never appeared in the film.
So, oh yeah.
I don't know. I think it would have been better if it had been drawn out more, but I prefer that to Duel of the Fates. I didn't care for the Duel of the Fates script at all. So
I've never read that script.
It's pretty much the I guess Rey loses a bunch of limbs in her eyesight.
Yeah, she does.
Wow.
Thank God.
And if you're real, you're not gonna love Duel of Fate. So at least with this, you get the kiss and the guy giving up everything to rescue the love of his life. But
this one, they're a dyad at least, which Brock loves.
Yes.
Sooner.
I like this film. It's one of the lower ones for me, but it's definitely not the lowest. I agree with Heidi that it was very rushed, and like two would have been really probably really cool, and but I thought Exegol though was pretty much the coolest planet of any of the sequel trilogy. I really liked Exegol. I thought that was some of the coolest part of all the sequels, and they brought in so much lore that you just didn't have time to really explain enough, and that's definitely a downfall. But I do think that kind of quietly that C-3PO was quietly like one of the stars. He was great in this movie. I thought his character was about one of the best he had ever done. And he was really funny, and great seeing him hold the dang blaster with. But yeah, it was solid, but definitely could have been a lot better. So.
Desi?
If I did a real ranking, this one would in fact be number 11. I think this movie is all over the place. I think a lot of it doesn't make sense. A lot of it is contradictory. But Heidi's right. I do like about 10 minutes of this movie. Kylo turning back into Ben, the kiss, and then I turn the movie off right then when they smile at each other, and it's a much more enjoyable movie for me. The parts that irritate me are not necessarily that she's a Palpatine now. I didn't think that was necessary. I kind of liked the Rey nobody thing. But her calling herself a Skywalker, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. And I will say that until the end of time, that Rey is not a Skywalker. She is a Palpatine. I don't care what she says. And if she's going to choose any name, it should have been Solo, because she got along well with Han. She was in love with Ben. Even Organa would have made a lot more sense. She didn't even like Luke. She hated Luke. Luke hated her. They didn't get along at all. They fought before she left. They never made up. Why would she take the name Skywalker?
Nope.
I think the answer is J.J. Abrams. Skywalker.
And why would she go back to the Lars homestead on Tatooine? Why?
Because
that doesn't make any sense.
Because that's where Luke's from.
But Luke left there. Leia was only a slave there for Jabba. Like, that's her only connection to Tatooine.
Yeah,
but
they couldn't bury the lightsabers they couldn't bury the lightsabers on Alderaan.
Yeah, and also that wasn't even Luke's lightsaber. It was Anakin's. Anakin, I guarantee you, would be furious to know that his lightsaber was buried in sand. He would come back from the dead just to take his lightsaber out.
He loves sand, though.
He loves it.
And Brock, your love of the dyad.
I mean, yeah, like this movie is fun, but it's like all over the place. For every okay, we're just gonna bring the Emperor back. You get a Babu Frick, and you're like, oh, Babu Frick, this is great. I'll watch that scene over and over again. There's a lot of cool characters in it, but then it's just like, why are we adding characters and then keeping all the other characters in it that we haven't done anything with? You know what I mean? Like, I can't even remember half the characters' names. But it's like, here's one thing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree with you. Like, why did we need to bring in Zori if we already had Rose and you haven't done anything with Rose?
Easy answer for that. Rian Johnson created Rose. J.J. Abrams created Zori Bliss.
Yes.
It makes complete sense.
But I will share this new piece of information of how I feel about the Rise of Skywalker that happened to me this week. I watched a video about a dog, and they used the music for the trailer for Rise of Skywalker, where it's the usual Star Wars blah 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 blah,
yeah.
but the sort of the later part where it's more symphonic and it's slow, and you're seeing the whole thing that's happening, and then there's a pause where it's just C-3PO is what are you looking at? It's I'm just looking one last time at my friends. And it's bam, Rise of Skywalker. And I'm why am I crying? Why am I feeling emotion? It's just it's love it or hate it. It's just Star Wars. And you know what? It's just like, I will say I'm just as guilty of this. I don't watch the sequels as much as I have watched the original 3. You know, like, it's one of the bad things about the world we live in now, where it's like, I don't, like, you're kind of not really forced to buy physical media anymore. And then again, you have so much. So it's like, it's these movies, like, if they don't grab you, they go down to the bottom of the list. So there you go.
I'm the same. I own all 5 Disney Star Wars movies on digitals, and I don't own any other Star Wars on digital, but I have the original 6 on that Blu-ray pack.
Yeah.
And I watched the hell out of those, and I haven't rewatched these. All 5 of them I haven't rewatched as much. And even on Disney Plus, I've watched prequels probably the most. Shoot me, people. I don't care. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Well, everyone knows how the prequel. I don't know what it is, but it's true. But I think Desi brought up my biggest problem with the sequels was like the misunderstanding of Luke Skywalker throughout it all, and that's what it came down to. It's like, just, well, I'm a Skywalker. Why? Because everyone loves Rey or loves Skywalker, and like, why is he missing in the first movie? Because he's a myth. Why is he a myth? Because of the original trilogy. We're fans of it. It's like, that doesn't make sense. Luke would not have wanted to be a myth. Like, he would have been. No one knew he was up there. Like, no one knew he went there. If you watch Return of the Jedi, they're not like, they're all going to go to Endor and Luke's going to go. No, he kind of like is like, I'm going there. Like, so I feel like there's a misunderstanding, and that leads to oil Rian Johnson and water J.J. Abrams not agreeing on what to do, and then you get Zori Bliss instead of Rose Tico, and
there's
number 9.
Well, I'll tell you
There's a
what.
fairly new comic that came out that it's about Jakku, and one of the characters was meeting not Jabba, but the guy that took over for Jabba. His name gone blank. Boba killed the one that Boba.
Yeah.
That guy. And
what's his name? Brock from Return of the Jedi. No Jabba, no Bada.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep going. I'll think of it.
Anyway, so he's at Jabba's palace, and someone walks up, and it's, I don't know, Jill Bliss or something. It's Zori Bliss's mom.
Jill Bliss.
I don't remember her first name, but it was her last name, and she has the same helmet and everything. And so that was Zori's mom in a comic. Yeah, so it was actually pretty
interesting.
No, I just want to say something. Well, this bothers Chance, and he got dressed up to say this, but what really bothersome about Rise of Skywalker, every plot point is for nothing. We go through all this to find this dagger that just happens to somehow looks like. How did this dagger, this ancient dagger, just look like the records of the Death Star? Okay, that's number 1. She gets there, and she gets the thing she's looking for, but then Kylo Ren's there. He's like, "Oh, you're not going there without me," and he crushes it. So then she just goes to. She takes the after she stabs him, and then she heals him. She takes the TIE fighter and goes to Luke's planet to burn everything. It looks like, well, the Wayfinder's in the TIE fighter, so you can just take that. Oh, okay. And then they erase C-3PO's memory. And first of all, they erased C-3PO's memory at the end of Rise of Skywalker. So is it really that big of a deal?
Revenge of the Sith, you mean?
And they erase his memory, and R2 has it on file. Okay.
It's fine.
The whole thing, they just get the Sith language. It was all for nothing.
You're not wrong. That one I don't even. I will say I still think for me they should have ended this movie with R2 being shut down for good, looking up into space, and the final iris out is R2 being shut down, because Lucas always said it was like him telling the stories, right? So like I think that would have been a nice poignant ending, but okay, let's go to number 9 so everybody can be very happy with this list, and that is The Last Jedi, and Brock shaking his head, so I'll start with Brock.
I mean, it's good. It has its moments, and it's like, it was a step in a direction that I wish they had followed through on. Is it a perfect Star Wars movie? No, but like, I don't know. The sequels are just the sequels, right? So there's things I like about it. think about it from time to time, like a lot of cool things could have happened. Which I feel like in Skeleton Crew, we're like, oh, are we finally doing something cool? So it's just like, I mean, Star Wars does cool stuff all the time, but it's just like I like Last Jedi, and I'm like, I always kind of put it high. So
yeah, Fantasia puts it very high too. Not as high as Desi. It was she, and you were not the only one that had it number 1. So your thoughts on it being not last? It's not last. So
I'm glad it's not last, and I'm also glad that it beat Rise of Skywalker, which I think it had not done in previous years. So,
no, I think this is the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm happy about that. I will tell you why my kids like it, because the other night we're done with dinner. I'm like, okay, we can watch a movie before bedtime. What movie do you want to watch? They picked The Last Jedi because that meant that they got to postpone bedtime for as long as possible.
Smart kids.
So we watched The Last Jedi, just not yesterday, but the day before. And I loved it. It is still my favorite Star Wars movie. Time has not changed that. The Rise of Skywalker does diminish my enjoyment of it a bit because some of the things that it sets up were completely ignored or went in a different direction in the Rise of Skywalker, which makes me sad. But I love this movie. I think that it is so beautifully shot. I think it's definitely the most visually stunning Star Wars movie. All of the haters can say what they want, but they can't argue with that. The best fight scene in all of Star Wars is the Praetorian Guard scene, followed closely by the Chimera scene in The Acolyte. Sorry, haters. I love that one too. But yeah, I think that this movie is great. I love the connection between Rey and Kylo Ren and them connecting through the Force and Force Skyping each other. I thought that was such a neat idea. I really felt like if Kylo had revealed then that she was a Palpatine or that she was a Kenobi or that she was even a Skywalker, everybody would have been like, oh, I knew it. I knew she had to be somebody. But the fact that he said, or that she actually said, because he says, you know the truth, say it. And she says they were nobodies. So it's not him lying to her. It had been her lying to herself the whole time about them being nobodies. So I liked that. I liked that. That actually was more of the I am your father moment that everybody was shocked by. I think everybody was a lot more shocked that she was nobody than if she had been connected in some way.
Sooner?
Well, the longer it's been from this movie, I do appreciate it a little bit more. It's definitely not my. It's definitely not that I don't like it, but it is my least favorite Star Wars. I don't. The Canto Bight scene is. I don't. That was just mind-boggling how they went through all that stuff and they didn't even talk to the guy that they were supposed to. And why DJ was just hanging out in the jail the whole time till they got there. Why didn't he break out, way before that? But it does have some great scenes. I mean, him and Yoda is amazing. Luke and Yoda, that's one of the best in all of Star Wars. But it has some good parts, but it's definitely my least favorite. This is. I'm sorry.
I will say that the Finn, Poe, and Rose stuff does not intrigue me as much as the Rey and Kylo stuff. I think that if they had not even had any scenes at all going to Canto Bight and we just cut all of that storyline out of the movie, it probably actually would have been stronger.
Yeah, it was just a bizarre side thing that really didn't gain hardly anything. So, and it still doesn't make any sense. Why did he sit in the jail the whole time?
Well, I mean, you could say the same thing for Jod Nana Wood.
Whoa. You leave Jod Nana Wood's name out of this. Leave Jod Nana Wood's name out. Jod Nana.
He's got like 5,000 names. I can't remember all.
Actually, hold on. I got Side Akbar right now, Brock. I know you were We talked about this on the last one. So Star Wars Holocron tweeted this out. These are the names that Jod has gone by. Now, obviously, we're recording this before New Year's Eve's episode. Spoilers for everyone who thinks we're live. So unless he has another name on Tuesday shows, Silvo, the Mad Captain, Jod Nana Wood, Crimson Jack, Dash Zenton, Jodwick Zank, Professor Umium Gorlox. Those are all.
That's the one he takes on the thing. Yeah.
So that's Star Wars Holocron tweeted that out. I was like, I gotta screen grab this. So anyway, he is a saint.
But actually, I got an early script, and in the next episode, he's going to call himself Jod Skywalker.
And he's a Diane. Heidi?
You beat me too. The words about to come out of my mouth. I'm serious. This is my favorite of the sequels, and it's in the top half of my list. As a regular fan, you're gonna love it. Again, the only complaint I had, you go to Canto Bight, again, the whole thing was for nothing. That's why I'm not thrilled. That's why I don't find the opening of Revenge of the Sith so exciting, because I know that's for nothing. That's why I don't want to see a movie about getting Death Star 2 plans, because that's going to be for nothing. I will say this. When Canto Bight got interesting is when they stole that ship, and DJ says, and they said, oh, of course, look at this guy, a lot of money. He makes all his money selling his weapons and chips to the bad guys. And he goes through, and then you see an X-Wing, and like, oh, I guess he sells it to the good guys too. And like, okay, this is where we're going. These are the bad guys. They're controlling everything. This is going way out there. No, we bring back Palpatine. And I am hoping that this is what Skeleton Crew is going to do. Mm-hmm. Delve into Canto Bight. Maybe delve into Crimson Dawn, Black Sun, any of that. I know I would like to think that there may be something even more dangerous than this pulling the string somewhere. So I was disappointed about that point about Canto Bight not being explored more, because when it started to get interesting, you just cut it off and we don't have anything more to do with it. And I think it'd be very interesting to introduce new villains. Another problem, I don't like how they treated the Holdo character. I know it's supposed to be a mystery. Is she a villain? Is she not? It's just all of a sudden, here's this person. Why is she here? Why isn't she in charge? And then she has an awesome death. Also, why is this person in charge in an evening gown? Well, because same reason why Leia was in an evening gown. They cut out the opening scene, which was Han's funeral. So everybody was dressed up in like evening gowns and stuff. So a lot of things that were cut just, it didn't make any sense. And if they left it in, it would make more sense. But like I said, the Rayla scenes I think were amazing. I loved, as a fan of Hardware Wars, I remember sitting there and they lots of ships, and I see the ship come in. I'm like, oh, that looks like the iron from Hardware Wars, and it turned out it really wasn't iron. So I knew that was an Easter egg to Hardware Wars. Awesome lightsaber scene. I'm not sure if, because I'm kind of thinking the Chimera one might be better now. I'm not sure. They're both really good. I love the lightsaber scene. I love the sexual tension between the two of them. I don't know. I'm into that. I write books about that. I don't know why. I'm weird. But
no, you're not.
Yes, but I'm cute. So anyway. Anyway, I do love the movie. I think it's a great movie. I even like the opening sequence where it reminded me of Monty Python, where he keeps asking about his mom. and he said, and Hux is getting mad, and the guy said, sir, he's tooling with you, which is exactly what like Michael Palin, if Michael Palin was Hux and John Cleese was the guy who said he's tooling with you, sir. So it just reminded me of Monty Python. I know a lot of people hate it, but I just love the opening. I thought it was hilarious. So like I said, the only problem I had maybe Canto Bight, but at the end of Canto Bight, when we're saying this, I'm like, okay, we're going to go somewhere. This is going to be amazing. We're going to delve into an area that Star Wars never did before. Then the Last Jedi comes in and just completely. Rise of Skywalker comes in, completely throws out the window. So, and like I said, I'm hoping Skeleton Crew goes there and answers this question about Canto Bight, because to me that was a story that was just interesting. They just threw it away. So, other than that,
read the book. There's a book about it.
That's true.
I think for me, for me, the shortcomings are because like there was obviously no plan. So what they bring up in Canto Bight on the ship should have been a payoff later on. Like that should have been an issue, but it clearly was not an interest to J.J. Abrams at all.
Right.
I think Rian Johnson, when he read the script for The Force Awakens, was really only interested in Kylo Ren and Rey. I don't think he cared much about anybody else in that kind of shows. And for me, and I think I felt this the whole time, I still feel like Luke is treated kind of lazy in the movie, just like the way they approach him. Like it's such an easy out. And people can argue with me, but if you think of are they requels? Is that what they're called? The sequel, the remake sequels, the requels. Every single one of them, if it's Scream with David Arquette, if it's Ghostbusters with Dan Aykroyd, they're all miserable when they're old. They're all like, even Indiana Jones is like, I'm miserable. And you're like, why? Just because it's the easy way, because then you can redeem them. And I just felt like that's lazy. And the more time goes on, I'm like, man, I'm not saying he should have been like super power. I don't even know. Like, that's not my job. But I just feel like that was lazy. And it definitely wasn't where we were being led to. And I think a lot of the discourse with him is that in The Force Awakens, we're definitely not led to believe that that's Luke. And when you wait 2 years to see a movie, and what you're being told is going to happen is the opposite. And I don't like the throwing of lightsabers still. The music swelling up is so Looney Tunes. But that being said, that doesn't ruin the movie for me. The Muppet fish is milking the space cow is much worse.
Yeah.
But again, it's like if they would have followed up on a lot of it, I think this movie would have been the strongest of the three eventually, if it's not already. And the Praetorian Guard scene, the Praetorian Guards now, I think 10 years later, we can say should have just been the Knights of Damn Ren in that scene. Like it should, like otherwise, what the hell's the point of Knights of Ren at all? But that's still my favorite scene in the sequels by a long shot.
Yeah, when they marketed the Force Awakens, I mean, they really implied it. Like, frankly, Luke was going to be in it, and and you're just, where is he? Where is he? And they never. And I still just that scene on Starkiller Base, I still thought he was going to be the one catching the lightsaber the whole time. That's hard to get over because that would have been awesome. But anyway.
And that's JJ's fault, not Brian's.
The fault is that they didn't have a story. Someone should have said Luke is miserable from the get to JJ Abrams. Anyway, this is another topic.
I honestly think if Rise of Skywalker had been an actual sequel to Last Jedi, that both movies would have been considered awesome.
Yeah, which I still think Rian Johnson should have done 9.
I think if Carrie Fisher had lived, then perhaps that would have changed the Rise of Skywalker. Perhaps Leia would have lived. This is in my mind. Leia would have lived. She would have welcomed her son home with open arms. Instead of people being like, oh, he's so evil, he couldn't be redeemed. Okay, well, Luke redeemed Anakin. And also when Poe and Finn saw Hux and found out that he was the mole, they were like, yeah, we knew it. And they were totally fine and happy with him when he did way worse things than Kylo did. Like, he was responsible for Starkiller Base and the Hosnian system, not Kylo.
Yeah, people are weird about Kylo, though. I don't know. I think people just like to just like to have attitudes for attitudes. I think when it comes to that,
and in the lead up to the Rise of Skywalker, J.J. Abrams was like, "Oh, we had all these cut scenes that we didn't wind up using with Carrie Fisher, so we just used them in this, and it was so natural and it fit so perfectly." and then I watched the movie. I'm like, this in no way is natural. This is weird. What she's saying doesn't really fit with what's going on in this scene. Like, no. It would have been better to just have her die off screen in between movies, in my opinion.
Yeah, and they had an out too because of what happens in The Last Jedi. That could easily have been said due to her, being in space she ended up dying from those causes or something. Like they had an out for that, but they decided to do what they did, and Maz Kanata looked like an animatronic from Disney World. So I mean, you got like a whole lot of awesome in there.
She was fighting when she was fighting like a, what was it, labor dispute or something?
Yeah, and then she wanted to bone Chewbacca again.
Oh, the second and Last Jedi, I remember she's got a labor dispute and she had to leave or something. So,
yeah. She's like Yoda. No, she's pretty garbage. All right, let's go on to number 8. Boo! This is the best Star Wars movie ever made. This is the one that I watch on Disney Plus the most. Shoot me! I don't know why I like this movie because I understand this is last on a lot of people's lists, but this year it wasn't last. It was kind of like second or third last on one. I genuinely love this movie, and I have no reason to. I still think the droid factory at the end is just, they're like, hey, this is a video game level, George. And he's like, let's do it. But I don't know what it is. I genuinely enjoy it. And I love the yellow space car thing at the beginning that Obi-Wan and Anakin are in. And I won't defend my take on it. I love it.
Is Fantasia like? Did he bribe everybody to make it be out of the line?
he pulled a Desi and he put this number 1.
No, he loves this one.
He does.
I mean, I don't think it's not one of my top ones, but it has some good scenes.
It's not his top one actually. To be honest, I think he had Last Jedi actually higher than it.
Oh, I just remember he liked it a lot.
He loves this movie. It is high. It is higher on his list than anybody else in this video. I'm trying to find his list. I don't like to tell everybody's list, but he's not canon, so I don't mind. Heidi, while I look, why don't you go?
I'd like to remind you, I am canon.
You are, yes.
I mean, I think I had the second to the bottom. I'm not the biggest fan of the. I mean, I don't say I'm not the biggest prequel fan. Again, same problem. Story was rushed. The relationship was rushed. Some people may argue Raylo was rushed or Osamir was rushed, but they just had chemistry. I did not see any chemistry between Christensen and Natalie Portman. And it didn't help that in the previous movie, he was a little kid when he met. So the whole relationship's just creepy. Now, apparently there are scenes cut. There are scenes cut where they visit her family. The kids.
Yeah, it's a good scene.
R2. She has dinner with her, I guess, her sister.
Yeah.
The pictures. But all we get is just him being like really creepy and not like creepy in a hot way, just creepy in a creepy way. And just started touching her back and things like that. And then, of course, the whole thing about, I don't like sand. It's rough and it's coarse.
Which is the truth. Has anyone ever encountered sand?
I mean,
this was Fantasia's.
What a pickup line.
This was Fantasia's number 1. Fantasia's number 1 is Attack of the Clones, and number 2, just to out him, is The Last Jedi. So you can't hate on him. Now you can't hate him. Now you don't even know what you think of him anymore.
Did he say his was number 1?
Yeah, number 1 was Attack of the Clones.
For Fantasia?
He doesn't like Star Wars, let's be honest.
I thought it was like one of his very favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think he put it number 1. He has it in the past, but this year he shocked me.
Also, I think that this is the movie, in my opinion, where he becomes Darth Vader, and I would have changed it a little bit. I would have him just have slaughtered the men of the Tusken Raiders, because he slaughtered women and children. I mean, that's pretty dark. I mean, that should have been saved for the younglings. He should have. Yeah.
After that, Padme confesses her love.
Compared to Revenge of the Sith, I mean, the Sand People was pretty tame. I mean, he's slaughtering younglings right in front of him.
Right, but I'm saying that should have been the act that turned him, and to me, that he turned to Darth Vader way before.
Well, especially now that we've seen Book of Boba Fett that has humanized the Tusken Raiders, and they're not animals that he slaughtered like animals. They were, sentient beings that should have been. I know what they did to his mother was not okay.
That was pretty bad.
But murdering all of the women and children too, was that necessary?
Yeah, it looked like it. sooner.
Yeah, I mean, this movie it's one of my lower ones, but I liked it. I do think that the last 45 minutes of the film, last 40, when the Jedi have the big arena fight. I mean, that is one of the coolest scenes of all of Star Wars. I mean, I just remember we never really had many Jedi. We saw a little bit in Phantom, but we really didn't see them all in action. And then I'm like, holy cow, there's like 50 of them. And so that scene is pretty amazing. And then the fight with Dooku, when you see Yoda walking to Kane, and then he becomes a damn circus act and bouncing around, and that's to where you see how powerful he actually was. You did, because we never really got to know that at all until that movie. And then Dooku, I think Dooku was a good character. I wish he would expand it on more. But the problem is the Padme and Anakin stuff is just it's ridiculous. It's silly. But I really do like the last 40 minutes of the movie. I thought it was really good. Before that, the beginning's kind of cool. The middle is really strong. But, that's why I think I had it about 9 for me.
Yeah, that's where it is on most people's list, to be honest. Between there and then the last one, Desi.
I love The Last Jedi because of Rey and Kylo's connection. I was an Oshimir fan, so I'm an Acolyte apologist. I don't understand how anyone could be an Anakin and Padme shipper. I mean, there's nothing really romantic going on here that feels real and genuine, and there's no chemistry between these two actors, and I'm just sorry to say that, but The Last Jedi is at the top of my list because I love a good love story. This is not a good love story, so I think this is probably about where it belongs.
Did you not see the scene when they're in the field and they're on the cows? Did you not see that scene? Are you forgetting about that? I think you need to go back and rewatch that scene, because that's like the most romantic scene in the movie.
You didn't think that was great right before they went out into the arena? She goes,
"Yeah,
I truly, deeply love you."
Yeah,
she's a great actress, and that was just ridiculous.
They are actually both good actors. I will say Hayden Christensen gets some hate that I don't think is deserved. But just these two together, no chemistry.
That was just like, what?
What's ironic is that's why George Lucas hired him, because he thought they had good chemistry.
Well, if everybody around you just does what you says, then you might make some mistakes. So.
Brock?
It kind of blows my mind that the prequels aren't in the bottom 3 of this list, but you know what? That's the world we live in now. I mean, for the longest time, they were at the bottom. Like this one, especially because of. It's funny. Like I say this often. It's like it is amazing how many memes have come out of the prequel movies. So it's just like when we get to Phantom Menace, I'm gonna be like, I'm an Anakin and I'm a person, or whatever it is. So it's just like even like. It's interesting, like, in the last 2-3 years, the scene of them talking in the grass has become that meme. It's like, he's just like smiling or whatever. It's just like, so it's still in the zeitgeist somehow, and that's probably because the younger generation's like, well, this is my Star Wars. Like, I mean, one day, God willing, I'll have children, and I'll be like, how would you like to watch this? Like, it's just like, do I watch it release-wise, or do I do it chronologically, story-wise? That is going to be interesting. And then build a time machine and try it the other way and see what that. Like, it's too bad, like, James, you're a father now. It's like, too bad I'm not a father now. Could we be like, you do it this way, and I'll do it this way. And we'll see who becomes a murderer first.
I haven't figured out how I'm going to show her Star Wars yet. I did let her watch, like, 3.5 minutes of 2 of the 3 versions of the Grinch, the 2 animated versions. So like the original one I watched when he steals Christmas, And the cutest thing happened. It's when he when he slithers like a snake under the tree at that one point. She started doing it. I'm like, all right, go for it. And then the Benedict Cumberbatch version, I showed her the part with the reindeer because she loves reindeer, with the fat reindeer. Lost her mind laughing. I was like, what? I'm like, guess it's the funniest. It is the funniest movie ever made. That's how she watched.
There you go.
And yeah, so I can't wait to show her Star Wars.
Funny.
Desi, how are you showing your kids the order?
My kids, I think I tried showing them in release order, so like 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. Actually, no, 7, 8. I'm sorry. I've never showed them 9.
They're gonna come home one day and be like, "Mom, we just watched this movie called The Rise of Skywalker, and it's so good.
It's so awesome."
Maybe
Palpatine comes back, and
maybe I started too young, but I feel like they have no connection in their head of these movies connecting together. It's just like, I'm watching a Star Wars movie, yay! And then like they have seen all of these movies before, and a week or so ago, we're watching The Empire Strikes Back. And I'm like, can you believe it? Can you believe that Darth Vader is Luke's dad? And they're like, wow. And then like, can you believe that Darth Vader is also Anakin? They're like, what? What? So, and then like, and they're like, is Anakin Kylo Ren's daddy? No, he's actually his grandpa. And they're like, what? So just
mind blown.
Yeah, the idea that Princess Leia is Kylo Ren's mommy blows their mind. Han Solo being his daddy. The idea that Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker are brother and sister. All of it is just blowing their mind. Even though they've watched all of the movies before, I tried explaining it to them, like the family tree, and they were not grasping the concept, I guess, just by watching the movie without me like explicitly telling it to them.
I might do the machete cut.
See, like the real like experiment is like show them 3 movies and then only give them those 3 movies for 20 years and then give them the rest. Like, it's,
did I tell you
mean?
when Erin and I were dating and she's like, I want to watch Star Wars, and I was like, what? And I
Yeah.
grabbed it was only 6 movies then, and I grabbed my Blu-ray and I put on the Phantom Menace as a test, and she goes, no, I want to watch one with Darth Vader, and I said, oh, that is Darth Vader. And we watched all 6 of them in 2 days.
I did that with an ex-boyfriend who had never seen Star Wars. Shocker, that didn't work out. But I watched it with him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 because it was before the sequels came out. And he was shocked that Anakin turned into Darth Vader. That was the shocking moment for him.
Yeah, I'm curious how it's going to be. Sorry, Heidi.
No, I was just saying, I went to see the Phantom Menace with my sister, and they show Anakin, and she's like, oh, it's little Luke. I said, no, it's not little Luke.
Yeah, that's Vader.
She had forgotten that Anakin Skywalker was Darth Vader.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, Jyn Erso is Rey's mom. Don't forget. Also, that was the big thing. It's a Rogue One. All right, let's hit up number 7. Any guesses on 7?
Go.
Phantom Menace.
Phantom Menace.
Phantom Menace. All right, I got 2 Phantom Menaces.
I'll go Force Awakens.
Force Awakens, and it is the donut.
Oh!
Brock gets a car. Hi, do you want to kick it off?
Well, this is freaky because not only is it number 7 on the list, it's the only Star Wars movie where the number matches the release.
Oh, look at that.
This year.
Bum, bum, this year.
I love this movie. I thought it was great. I have it. I think I have it right below The Last Jedi. I think if you're a Star Wars fan, you'll like it. Again, it's a fun ride. Unfortunately, a lot of characters got buried. I didn't like what happened to Phasma. Just throw in the garbage. We have a badass female villain that's like, okay, we'll just throw in the garbage, whatever. Yeah, I thought it was a good movie. Unfortunately, because of the age of the actors, you had to go way too far into the future, and we don't get the backstory. we're invested in this love story between Han Solo and Princess Leia for years. We see their struggle. We see the love-hate relationship develop into a loving relationship. I love you, I know. The whole thing. He's jealous of the guy that turns out to be her brother. The whole thing. We get there. Oh, they're divorced. Oh, okay. So we don't get to see this. We don't know what's going on. But I enjoy the movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. Again, and I remember the theater erupted. There were people dressed as Wookiees that night and went opening night, and people were going crazy, and we all had a good time. So I think it's a really good movie, and again, and I hope 20 years when the Rey movie finally is released, that the hatred for the sequels will be long gone, just like the prequels.
Sooner?
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting because it'd been a long time. We had a Star Wars, and it had a lot of good fun ride. I mean, Harrison was awesome. I mean, he was better than I expected, even because he hates Star Wars. But he was a lot better than I expected, and Chewie was good. It's just hard for me to The Force Awakens, when the name of the title, when she grabs the saber, I just really can't get over the fact that wouldn't have woken Luke up, and then then he should have saved. And the other thing is how she was so good at everything. And I think it just would have been cooler if that would have been Luke saving and battling. And we've been seeing the tension of him and his nephew. And then he kind of saved them. But I digress. Those are just the two things that I thought could have been better. But I thought Starkiller was cool. I really liked Hux. I hate how they changed Hux some. I thought Hux was an awesome character the first in 7, and then kind of became this bumbling doofus. But I really liked him in that one. But it's about right for me, about 7. But overall, it's pretty good.
Desi?
I wouldn't say that I love this movie, but I don't hate it either. It's somewhere in the middle for me.
I think it was last on your list, though.
It was last on my list. There are aspects of it that I enjoyed. There are aspects of it that I'm like, really, really, we had to have another basically Death Star 3.0. That the rebels have to fight and, explode, which nobody ever talks about, how really that was an evil thing of Poe to do, to kill all those people, because unlike Luke Skywalker with Death Star 1 and 2, where those stormtroopers all willingly signed up, these stormtroopers, we met Finn, who was a kidnapped child that they turned into a stormtrooper. How many children were on Starkiller Base because they had been kidnapped? Yes, because he had met Finn by that point. Yes, he knew that.
Fair enough.
Yeah. That's a little disturbing for me. I don't love it. I do love the Reylo stuff, obviously. I love that when we are introduced to Rey, her theme music sounds just like the Beauty and the Beast theme music. I love that her home has a bell sitting next to a wilted rose that is implying that this is Beauty and the Beast in space. I like that when Kylo meets her, she calls him a beast in a mask or something like that, and he stands up, he takes his masks off, and he says, you're not a prisoner, you're my guest, which is basically the exact same thing that the Beast says to Belle. They have the whole be our guest thing with Beauty and the Beast. So that stuff I loved. I did think that Hux was a good villain. I think that they could have turned him back into a big bad for the final film rather than pulling back Palpatine. I think that they had slapped Hux around enough in The Last Jedi that he could have come back, disgruntled with a chip on his shoulder, and then he becomes the big bad. That's what I think should have happened instead of bringing Palpatine back, but oh well. So I get why this is here in this place.
Rob?
I mean, if you're gonna say you like New Hope, you kind of have to like Force Awakens. It's not exactly a New Hope. Like a New Hope is.
It's worse.
It changed. Let me talk.
Because they killed children. This time Poe kills children.
That's fine.
But he was a spider runner. He was a bad guy.
But how many kids were aboard the Death Stars?
0 as far as I know.
Okay.
Oh,
Don't say families.
I'm pretty sure
This
they
is
had
like-
daycare on the Death Star.
this is in Clerks. This is in the movie Clerks, where
They
they're like,
didn't
there
talk
had to be
about-
people, innocent
They didn't
people
talk
died.
about the children, at least in the original trilogy. They full on talked about how stormtroopers are all kidnapped children who are there against their will.
I just going to say Leia was not the only prisoner aboard that station.
Yeah.
That's true.
But yeah, so it's just sort of like I always put this movie and New Hope kind of in the middle because it's like as much as like a New Hope is where it all starts, it's like it's not the movie I go to, and it's always Return of the Jedi or Empire or whatever. But I don't know, this might be a good spot for it. Number 7. I think I saw this 7 times. I even while you guys were talking, looked in my drawers. Not my boxer shorts, my office drawers. Here's 5 different tickets from The Force Awakens in 2015.
Thank you for clarifying.
Wow.
Yeah, December 17. What's that one? December 31. That's right.
Yeah, that was
New Year's
in
Eve.
Belleville.
Yeah, Belleville. So I was probably with you, James.
Yeah, you were with me.
December 22. What's this one? December 26th, Boxing Day, and December 20. And I'm pretty sure I saw it at least 2 more times on top of that. So
You did.
I guess I like this movie. I don't know. But also, it was like, I think Sooner mentioned this, is like, it was a return to the theater for new Star Wars. It was like, this is unthinkable. So it's like, it gets that for it. But yeah, absolutely. Like, we're talking for about an hour about how, like, the sequels are like, well, they're kind of good, but also they're flawed. So yeah, I get it. I don't know.
I call this movie a donut. It's delicious as hell, but it's empty calories. But it's just delicious. It's so much fun to watch. It's a blast. Right when we left the theater, I was like, I got a smile on my face the whole time. Because again, like you said, it's like back to the theater to watch Star Wars. It had been 10 years, and like we're back. That's how it's going to feel when we go see Mando and Grogu. We're going to be like, what the hell is this? It's not on my TV anymore. Brock's going to be like, I'm not watching this at 3 a.m. on my phone. This is weird. It's going to be a good time. But it was fun. But I had problems like Rey doing the Jedi mind trick on Stormtrooper at the end. I'm like, what's happening there? Because it just felt forced. Again, though, it came to like that J.J. Abrams is a fan of Star Wars, and he goes, "Oh, people are gonna like that. We're gonna throw that in." That's what it felt like. It's like, all right, but it's a donut. It's delicious. Just while you're watching, you're like, "This is fun," and it looks good. You're like, "Oh, look at it. It looks like a movie," and you don't really mind the little things. And then it's the other movies when they come out, and you're like, "Oh, this movie makes no sense." That's when the problem.
I will say my kids love BB-8. Here's another thing I just want to say about the Rise of Skywalker. Did we need Dio?
Yeah,
like
toys.
What did that serve? There was no purpose for Dio, in my opinion, and my kids don't like him. They don't think he's cute.
No, BB-8.
No interest in those toys.
They crushed with BB-8. Like BB-8 was like they did it, and yeah. Anyway,
he's adorable.
All right.
Specific question is Rise of Skywalker a Tim Horton donut or a Dunkin' Donuts donut?
The Force Awakens. The Rise of Skywalker is a Tim Hortons donut.
I'm sorry, I meant the Force Awakens.
No, when I said Dunkin' Donuts, I like the Dunkin' Donuts coffee. The donuts I can tell from the Krispy Kreme's probably definitely got them beat. But
no. Okay.
Desi wasn't there for the conversation. She's like, when Brock goes to Tarjay in the States, I always ask him to bring him back a bag of Dunkin' Donuts coffee because we can't get it. It's like $30 a bag on Amp.
They don't have Target in Canada?
No, we did. And then they screwed up on the Dementia or whatever it's called, Imperial versus whatever. And they had to leave. Anyway, look. No, I'm not making that up either. Brock, can you explain? We'll explain this. All right. It's true.
So there's the banking clan.
We had Target for like what, a year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
It's a long story.
It's a long story. They screwed up and then they're gone, and now we have Walmart. That's it. We've got Walmart. We shop at Walmart or Amazon. Number 6. Here we go. Arguably the best Star Wars movie ever made. The Phantom Menace at number. This is the highest I believe it's ever been on the list. This was number 1 on several lists.
Wow.
And
really?
I now have new best friends.
Is it my kids? Did they send in their list?
Your kids I'm going after the little kid. I'm like, I need Phantom Menace to be higher on the list. It shocked me, and I was very happy about this shock because Brock knows I love this movie to death. But again, like The Force Awakens, it's probably more of a donut. But it was the same thing though. This was the first time I ever saw Star Wars in the theater for the first time, because I saw the re-releases of the special editions of the originals, but I had lived off of those for like 10 years, whatever it had been at that point. But this time it was like, this was a brand new Star Wars movie for the very first time in my life, going to go see it. And it was the most exciting thing ever. And then having QuickTime load the trailer for 6.5 days to watch it online. It was like the whole thing was like this cool experience. And Brock just sent a thing about Duel of Fates on TRL. Yeah, I can't. But like, it was like, this movie will always have that like special place in my heart. And Gungans are way better than people let on. And they need to bring Jar Jar back, man. Bring him back. Brock, agree with me and then move on. I'm sure.
I mean, yeah, it is kind of funny that it's like after the sequels come out in an era where movie making is like way more ahead. It's like the prequels don't look as bad, but it is kind of bizarre to me. Like I was at a con once where like Anthony Daniels was doing like a talk, and then like he mentions like Phantom Menace, and they were like, oh, or he mentions Jar Jar, and then some kid's like, boo! I'm like, you're like 5 years old. Like, it's just like, what? This is bad parenting right there. It's like, Jar Jar Binks is for you. But anyway, so it is very strange to have watched the sequels go down like this and then come back up. Like I said, I'm like, my name is Bananakin and I'm a person. It's just so funny to me. It's so many different ways. I don't know. Phantom Menace, yeah. I was like James, where it's like you're like, oh, the early days of the internet where you're like seeing all these things for the first time. It's like, it might be just a little too ahead of the curve of when people were ready for that, right? So it's like, I don't know. I think the prequels are very interesting because they are simply created from one monologue in the first movie, and now we have 3 movies from it. So, yeah, if I could go back in time and watch it in the theater 5 or 6 times, like I did for Force Awakens, I'd probably do it. So I think this is a good spot for it, and I think it's interesting that it's risen. Since we've been doing this for 8 years, this used to be like number 2 at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
So it's like now it is the middle movie. Like, that's interesting.
Yeah. Does he?
Not only did that monologue spin off 3 movies, it also spun off multiple TV shows.
Yeah.
So crazy. Yeah, this is my kids' favorite Star Wars movie. I think they like the fact that Anakin is their size, so they can see themselves in it. They love Jar Jar. They think Darth Maul is just the coolest. So this year for Halloween, they were Darth Maul and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and my son, who is Obi-Wan Kenobi, kept trying to whack off the legs of my other son, who is Darth Maul. It's a fun ride. Is it my favorite movie ever? Probably not, but I don't think it deserves the hate that it gets. Much like Solo, A Star Wars Story, I still enjoy watching it. I have fun whenever I do, and I don't think that Jar Jar should be hated as much as he is. I'm a Jar Jar apologist.
Sooner?
Yeah, this is one of those I think that has gotten people have liked it. Obviously, even like you said, the ratings have gone up. Because I mean, the first time I saw it, I was cool because I was seeing lightsaber, but it was very confusing because a lot of the political stuff, that really wasn't discussed much in the original trilogy, and I was like, what is going on? And so I think that took some time to watch. But after you see it a few times, you can see how it's relevant. I do think that because the first one you're just thinking about, I'm going to learn who Little Vader is, and that's kind of all that was promoted. But the movie was really a lot more about. That was just one of the parts of it where there was a whole lot more of this that was kind of confusing at first because it was. And I think that's one of the things that made people kind of not like it as much early because it was just a lot of political stuff that you didn't have to use to deal with when it came to a Star Wars film. But as it's gone on, I think just with all the sequel prequels, they've all gotten a lot better, and I think it's a much better film as time on. And you can't help but the prequels were definitely helped by Clone Wars. I mean, there's no doubt that those movies are better if you've watched that series. And because it's like when I watched the prequels before, like it was kind of it was so fast and his falling to dark side is just kind of rushed. But man, when you watch the Clone Wars and you see how it happened, man, it's like, no, I don't want him to fall because Anakin's so awesome in the Clone Wars. So, but it still has with the Darth Maul and Qui-Gon. It sucks as Qui-Gon was like one of the coolest Jedi's ever, and then we only got him for one movie. Yeah, this is about I think I had mine. I think this is maybe 9 for me, but I do enjoy it a lot more than I used to. And so yeah, it's good.
Ivy?
Like I said, I don't hate it. It's my number 11. And like I said earlier, worst beginning of a love story ever. It's just wrong on so many levels.
Are you an angel?
There's fart jokes. There's Stephanie crap jokes. I mean, it does have its moments. The lightsaber duel, which gets spoiled by the album because it says right on the album the death of Qui-Gon Jinn. And when I went, I went in to see it with my sister. We saw it together for the first time, and when we were watching this, she leans over to me and she's like, "Yeah, don't get too attached to Liam Neeson. He's not gonna make it by the end of this movie." So I think that was a little obvious. I did. They Boba Fetted the Darth Maul character literally because they killed him off and then they brought him back. I don't know. What's interesting is if you've ever read the Star Wars comic books, which is based on the original script for the Star Wars trilogy, a lot of what is in the Phantom Menace was the stuff that was cut for time. Because originally, Darth Vader was abducted Leia Antilles to get her to sign a treaty. So all that stuff that was thrown out of the trilogy ended up in the prequels. So I know it sounds terrible, but to me that means it's just the garbage they usually do. I'm sorry. I don't hate it. I like it. I like all Star Wars, but it's my least favorite.
Wow. Brock, you brought up a good point, Brock, where the prequels, because George Lucas cared so much about technology, they haven't aged that poor. Like there's little things here and there, but they've aged pretty well. Like compared to a lot of other movies, special effects heavy, they've aged fairly well. All right, top 5. Here we go. Top 5 standing by.
One more thing. I'm sorry.
Yep.
When Disney first bought Star Wars, there was an explosion of YouTube channels. How I would have done the prequels.
Oh yeah.
No, you're not. You are not. I was around. Outside Akbar, I was in grade 12th grade, as you would say. No, 11, 12 when the Phantom Menace came out. I was in a computer class because computers weren't a big thing then. That's where I downloaded the trailer, was on 6 days in that class. And they were like, go on this, I think it was Yahoo? No, whatever, the search engine to search. And I searched the Phantom Menace, and all it was articles about people hating Jar Jar Binks. And I was like, how bad is this character? I got to find out how bad this character is. Like, the movie had been out for like an hour, and it was all like, Jar Jar was annoying. I don't like Jar Jar. So, yeah, people quickly forget that the prequels were not loved. All right, top 5. Here we go. You guys ready for this?
Top 5.
Number 5, The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, that'd be amazing. That would be amazing.
Whoa. A New Hope, number 5. I always put this way lower on the list than I probably should. It's got my favorite. I don't know. There's something about this movie that when I watch it, I'm like, this is the best Star Wars movie. But then every time I watch a Star Wars movie, I say the same thing. But this one is the one that kicked it off, and it is the only one of the 11 that you can watch. Well, maybe Solo. That you can watch having known nothing about Star Wars. It's the only one you can watch having no knowledge of the franchise at all. I think it's a near perfect movie. It's one of like the 5 most near perfect movies you can make. Is this one? And Alec Guinness is phenomenal in it. Brock.
Yeah, I mean, it's A New Hope. It's like they got you in the door, so it's like you got to give it respect. It's just wild that it's one of the AFI top 100, if that's even relevant these days. But like, it's like it set the precedent, and then was arguably outdone twice. I guess I don't know where people stand on Return of the Jedi, but obviously Empire is like one of the best sequels in film history ever made. So it's like it said something for the predecessor. It was like that movie was amazing, but now we got this thing. But it's like it's kind of I think going back to what I said about Phantom Menace is like George Lucas. You can say whatever you want about his writing style. It's at least he has a vision and he goes for it. So it's like the fact that when you watch A New Hope, all those it's been redone, but like when you watch the original cut, it's like that's all just miniatures going by like this. Like it's just a couple of Dungeons and Dragons nerds in a basement shooting stuff, right? So to capture the imagination like that in the 70s, like it did, and continue on like that, it's wild. So it's like you kind of can't have any of it without A New Hope. So why it's not number 1 every time is kind of wild. But again, it's like we're rating on which one do you want to watch the most. It's like you could probably quote most of A New Hope, but generally we're like, oh, I love Return of the Jedi, I love Phantom Menace. So yeah.
Desi?
I love A New Hope. Obviously, none of us would be here right now if this movie wasn't made. It spawned everything that came after it. It is a perfect movie because you can wrap it up in a bow and that's it. And you have one movie. You don't need any of the others. Every other movie, you need this movie first. I do think it was funny because I mentioned earlier that my kids have no concept of the movies necessarily being related. When we were watching The Last Jedi the other day, they thought that Luke was Obi-Wan. And I'm like, no, that's Luke Skywalker. They're like, no, he's not. That's not Luke Skywalker. That's Obi-Wan Kenobi. Because in their head, Obi-Wan Kenobi is the old guy who's a hermit, in those faded robes. So I did think that was interesting. And I'm like, oh, have you been talking to people on the internet? Because they would also agree with you that that's not Luke.
Oh. Sooner?
Yeah, this is great. It's my second favorite when I ranked it. And it's like he said. I mean, the thing that's cool about it is it really could have just been one film, and it would have been a good, fun film. I don't know if we can really say that about any of the others, that they had to have other parts to it. But it's just George and what he had to go through to get it done. I mean, and how all the executives didn't think it would work, except that one guy that kept hanging in there. Thank goodness he did. And thank goodness for George's ex-wife, because she really bailed him out. Which I heard something that I'm not sure if this is true, but the reason he did the redo ones in the 90s and added a few of those scenes is so she doesn't get rights to the funds anymore. I don't know if that's true or not, but might be. I don't know. I don't know how that would be possible, but yeah, it's the world that it built, that it created, and how we went from there, and all the lore from it. It's just the best fun film, and it's like my second favorite. I love it.
Heidi?
I'm going to agree that this is also my number 2 favorite. I think it's amazing. I have good memories with it. Like you, I got into Star Wars with the action figures before the films. The dogfight at the end is just amazing. The story that's established. This is probably the first blockbuster film and the first movie that gave credence to the sci-fi genre. I mean, we did have Planet of the Apes a few years ago, but that stayed on Earth. This was the first one that took place in space, and it was just incredible. The other thing about it, it's probably, if you have me rank the films of the lightsaber fights, best to worst,
Yeah.
fight.
Except that new upgrade. I don't know if y'all ever seen that. Those people that did that upgrade to it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But yeah, other than that, I think it's a near perfect film.
And that leads us to number 4. Drum roll. Revenge of the Sith. Wow. Last year this was number 3, but now it has been taken over. Yeah, this surprised me. I thought at first it was trending high. I was like, "Oh, it's gonna be very high," and no, it dropped a spot this year. I like this movie. This Fantasia hates this movie. But I like it quite a bit. I think it's a good one. I have nothing really to say about it. I think I've said enough every year. It's a great movie. I do find it amazing though how like this is the younger generation. I don't know what generation they are anymore, but the ones who are like in their 20s now, like this is the pinnacle of Star Wars to them is Revenge of the Sith, and nothing can be better than Revenge. It's like The Empire Strikes Back for that age group. It's like nothing can be better than Revenge of the Sith. I'm like, that's wild, because I saw it in the theater, and I will tell you the reaction was the opposite of that. That's what I will tell you. I remember leaving, and people were like, eh. But the moment the mask comes down and you hear the breathing for the first time, you're like, yeah, all right, let's go. Brock?
Yeah, Revenge of the Sith is probably the most dramatic of the prequels, I guess, because it's just sort of like, here we go, let's see it. Trying to think of like what parts I like it in the best. I mean, like it opens with like what do you call him? General Grievous. So you're like, well, that's a really cool villain. Like, wow. And then you're like, you kind of don't get enough of him in the movie. And then, of course, Clone Wars adds a little, so that's good. But yeah, this is usually where the one prequel I rank pretty high. I think I think it might have been a little bit better if we didn't know what was about to happen. But like, there's like, well, like this is the third one, and at this point we knew that New Hope was number 4, so it's like this is where he becomes Darth Vader. So even though like we made a good point earlier, it's like I would argue in Clone Wars he becomes pretty evil. So but yeah, this is a good one, and yeah, I usually put this higher, so I get it that it's in the top 5 now.
You know, before we go, Desi, before I get to you, that's a good point that you said how like we knew we were going to 4, like A New Hope is 4. We know that there's no choice. Whereas the sequels could have just kept going. They didn't have to rush anything. There wasn't a need for it to be end at 9. Like they could have kept going. Like there's a difference there. Okay, Desi, sorry, your turn.
This is definitely my favorite of the prequels. there are still some quotable, memeable, weird dialogue moments. Like, have you ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? All of that. I still like the theory of Darth Jar Jar. I think that Jar Jar, being the mastermind the whole time, would have been a great addition to this movie. And just one more thing I forgot to mention about A New Hope. I am glad that it ranked higher this year than The Force Awakens, which I think it had ranked lower than in previous years, which never made any sense at all to me.
No, that makes no sense.
When they're the same movie, but
Look,
A New
we
Hope is
don't-
better.
We don't create these rankings. These are dictated from the minds, and George Lucas gives final approval on this, okay? So this... no, I agree. I think yeah. Sooner?
Yeah, by far, I agree with Desi. This by far my favorite prequel. You still struggle a little bit with the rush of how he fell. I mean, he was running off to Mace Windu just right before that, and it wasn't like he just joined him and then went and attacked Mace Windu. He went and told him. So, but when you see the Clone Wars, you get to see it develop more and what he did, and I love the scene in the opera, the Darth Plagueis tragedy. Yeah, and maybe someday we'll actually get to see him except in a cave. I don't know, but because it's the book that they wrote was awesome. But then seeing I mean, just the flip of how evil he became was it was brutal, and it's really brutal after you watch him on Clone Wars because he becomes so much more likable on Clone Wars. It was hard to during the movie. It really, well, yeah, he turned Darth Vader, but it didn't really hurt. It didn't feel it as much because he just hadn't had a lot of time to really get to like him, and then you knew what was going to happen. But in Clone Wars, man, you really see how great he is, and then it's like, oh man, I know what's going to happen to him. And then it's awesome to see Sidious and Yoda. I mean, you got the two epic evil wizards fighting out, and then Mustafar was, it's a little dramatic, but it's still great to see Obi-Wan and Anakin or Darth Vader then. But yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite prequel, and yeah, for sure.
Heidi?
Well, I think we learned that the tragedy of Darth Plagueis is that he was crashing on Chimera's couch and just eating all his food. Yeah, again, my favorite of the prequel. I had it at 8. I have the sequels 3 through 1 at the bottom of my list. I might have appreciated the movie more if I had not seen the OG trilogy, because the whole thing was just seemed like it was for nothing for me, because the thing at the beginning, and I don't like all the CGI. I like more practical effects. But the CGI is just almost too overwhelming, and we're going in and you talk about the battles they do. Remember the battle we got you out of? I'd rather see the battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin went through, which is a lot more interesting than watching a space battle that I know going in is just a setup. The whole thing just seems like for nothing to me. I did want to see how he turned, but again, the whole thing, I don't know. It just didn't work for me as well, but I do like it more than the prequels, most of them. The rest of the prequels. Also, I don't like how he turns on Padme. If she's the love of his life, I would have had him accidentally hurt her as opposed to purposely hurting her, because I think that makes their love story worse. However, I will say that I do enjoy Hayden Christensen as Anakin in Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. I think he's great. I like the character Anakin, and I really didn't watch Clone Wars, but from what I've seen, I know a lot of people say it makes a lot better. again, I don't hate these movies. They're just not my favorite, and I felt like this too was rushed.
And I think this movie film also by far was the top Palpatine film. He really, this is the one where he was solid in the first two, but he was definitely he shined in this film for sure.
And I think it would do these movies well for, well, maybe not because the kids love it, or not kids anymore, but to do a live action Clone Wars, like just a little like one-off season of Obi-Wan and Anakin chilling together, maybe.
Yeah.
For live action, for the people who won't watch the Clone Wars because it's animated, because those
Right.
people exist, whether we want to.
Or if they're overwhelmed, they're a little old because it is a lot of episodes.
Yeah, that's true too. If you go on there, you're like, oh, 900 seasons. I don't know if I could do that. But if you give like a short, and you do a separate story hasn't been told in the Clone Wars, just something fun and show their dynamic and a little bit more of it. All right, number 3. Here we go. Big surprise here. Rogue One, a Star Wars story. The full title, Rogue One, a Star Wars story. This one was 3 a couple years ago, dropped down below Revenge of the Sith. People seem to love it. I think Andor helps this movie out. Like, people love Andor, and I think that's helping out this year with Rogue One. I'm looking for an Andor season 2. I like Rogue One. I mean, it ends with the hallway scene, which is amazing. So I think the beginning's still clunky. It's still got a clunky opening bit, but I like it. I like the characters. I like K2SO. I like that everyone dies. I like that everyone dies. Kill them all. That's what I like. I like it. I'm like, yo, you know what? There are real stakes here, and these people died so that we can enjoy A New Hope. At number 5, Heidi.
This is actually where I have it. It's my favorite of the Disney Star Wars films, and it's my 3rd favorite overall. I think it's amazing. I will say it's the last third of the movie that makes it between the space battle, the battle on Scarif, and of course the amazing hallway scene. I wouldn't mind them going back and fixing the CGI a little bit of Tarkin and Leia. That I'd be okay with. Really, I don't like when they go back and fix things, but I kind of wouldn't have a problem with them doing that. But yeah, I think it's a great movie. It actually knocked, for me, Return of the Jedi out of the top 3 when it came out. So, like I said, I love this movie. I think it's a great movie.
Yeah, it's by far my favorite film that Disney's done, and it's just, it really makes it has that original trilogy, gritty feel. The idea of the Guardian of the Wills, those 2 guys, that I love their dynamic. They are awesome, and but unlike, I do say that Borg Gullet gets a real bad. I don't even understand the point of him, but whatever. But yeah, it's a great, and then to see Vader kind of, and when I was going to the movie, I was like, I don't know if they'll do this, but I hope it ends right where New Hope is, and not really thinking it would, but yeah, it really did right there. So, still waiting for Bothans. We still got Andor season 2. Maybe we'll have a Bothan. I don't know, because they deserve some time. I know, even though they were the second Death Star, I mean, we at least need to see them. I don't know if we ever will, but no, this is a great film, and I really enjoyed it.
Desi?
I do think that this is a good movie. I also think that it's overrated. I think people hype this movie up so much, like it is the greatest thing ever. And I will admit that it's good. It's good, especially the last third of it. Yeah. But the first 2/3, I'm sorry, so boring. I was sitting there in the movie theater like, what am I watching? This is a snooze fest. The last bit of it, though, great. It all culminated together and was fantastic at the end. And I love the hallway scene. K2SO, one of my favorite droids. He's fantastic. Love K2SO. I will agree with Heidi. I think they need to go back in now that deep fakes have gotten much better. Go fix Tarkin, go fix Leia, make those better. But I do enjoy this movie. I'm going to be controversial and say I don't think it deserves third place. I think it's good. I don't think it's as wonderful as everybody seems to claim. Everybody's thinking about the last part of it. You got to remember, as a whole movie, I don't know.
I like. I mean, but those parts, it is slower. But I think Jeddah, you really, because we didn't really know much about it, and we learned how important it was to the the Jedi story, and also what evil. Not only did he wipe out the Jedi, he destroyed all the kyber crystal, and how he was doing it is Jeddah. He was going in and raiding everywhere in the galaxy, and I don't know if that's ever that was never really explained in any just they have this big laser, but everything that he did was to destroy everything that the Jedi had built. So I thought that was pretty cool how they showed all that. So and how they just didn't care anything, and that's how they get it to work, because that was never really explained before. But I agree, it's slower. I agree. And the battle is the best space battle. It's an epic. But yeah, I'll go.
I will say that this Rogue One is probably season 3, episode 3 of The Mandalorian in reverse, where that one starts out really exciting, the first third, and then like the last 2/3 slows down. This is the exact opposite. The first 2/3 are slow down, but then the last third is extremely exciting.
Brock?
This is where I put Rogue One number 3, just because it's like, yeah, that was great. And it's just like no notes, but obviously there's always a way to pull these movies apart. I'm curious of what would have happened with Star Wars movies outside the fact that maybe they would have made more if the sequels had been more successful. Because this movie was okay, this is attached to those movies, but you're not going to see very many of the same characters. You're getting a whole group of people that inevitably are going to die. I don't think that was ever a secret. It's this is a suicide mission to try to get the Death Star plant. So it's just sort of we can do sort of whatever we want. And I think it was a success in the sense of this is an enjoyable Star Wars movie that doesn't really rely on Jedi to make it go anywhere. So it's I think it's okay, so let's do Solo, and then Solo became what it became, and then the sequels were just doing whatever, even though they were making how many millions of dollars, but of course the success in box office always almost makes no sense to me ever. So it's just sort of if the sequels had been good, and if Solo hadn't been a total cluster, it's I'm curious of where we would have gone, because I think Rogue One is what launches that attempt to do other things. I would argue that Rogue One gives you Mandalorian, the TV show, gives you Andor, obviously, and I feel when I watch the TV shows, this is because someone took a chance on this story like Rogue One, where it's based on nothing, right? And maybe they're just copying of the idea of I thought with your father in the Clone Wars, he was a great pilot, and then became 3 movies. So it's I don't know. So, I like it, but anyways,
I think that in the same way that the Clone Wars animated show made Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith better, I think that Andor has made this movie better for me.
That's fair.
Because I would say, watching the movie, I didn't really care that much about Andor as a person, but now after watching Andor the series, I love that character, and now it has made me enjoy Rogue One more.
Sure,
so even though I didn't love the first 2/3 watching it in the theater, now I get more enjoyment out of it because I care more about Andor.
Did I say I don't know if you ever saw The Matrix? But when you first go in to see The Matrix and you don't know what it's about, and you're just suddenly what the hell's going on? What am I watching? This doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. This is boring. I don't want to see it. Then when it all gets revealed, you're oh my God, this is amazing. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. I think that's kind of the feeling I got watching Rogue One.
Yeah. I mean, And I think season 2 will really, really enhance that film because it's going to show right up to the movie. So it's good that we got the first season. We kind of got the first real how the small rebellion, but then we're going to see it grow, and of course, getting to see his buddy, the robot, will be cool, and we'll see it build. So I really am looking forward for season 2 for sure.
Yeah, this spring. All right, number 2, and 2 is actually the best Star Wars movie ever made. Return of the Jedi. And I'm not gonna lie, the separation between 1 and 2 this year, because the kids are speaking and they're not enjoying Return of the Jedi as much. We got to educate you kids that it's the best Star Wars movie ever made. Empire sucks. I put Empire last going forward. It sucks. I'm joking, of course. Return of the Jedi is my personal favorite. It has Ewoks in it, so suck it. That's it. That's all I got to say. They got Ewok. It has Ewoks. Empire does not.
Yeah.
But anyway, I love Return of the Jedi. I think it's a lot of fun. It's kind of like, although you know what, Denis Villeneuve kind of said, like, what do you say? Like, Return of the Jedi kind of ruined Star Wars, right? Like, in a matter of, and he's kind of not wrong in a lot of ways. Like, this is now like what we expect from Star Wars, but what we want is Empire. And it's like Star Wars is like this cluster of, it doesn't really know what it is because of this movie. But suck it, Villeneuve. Dune doesn't have Ewoks. So anyway, I love Return of the Jedi. But again, like I was a kid. It hit me at the right time in my life. So it'll always be Return of the Jedi for me. Brock, let's go with you. Return of the Jedi.
Ewoks, suck it. I'm done. Ewoks. That's it. That's all I got to say.
That's it.
Ewoks.
That's
Ewoks.
it. Skeleton Crew, bring the Ewoks. Desi.
Yeah, honestly.
This is my husband's favorite Star Wars movie. I'm guessing he's the same age as you guys because
Ouch!
30, right?
Yeah.
I just turned 29 and a half.
Yeah.
He loves this movie because I think it came out when he was a kid. And so he's got the feels for it, and he loved Ewoks as a kid, and so that's why it's his favorite movie. We still have from the 80s his I don't know at or AT-AT. Where are we going with this?
Is it a planet or a I think it's
Adeline or
Is it a phone company?
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll go with AT-AT.
Yeah.
We've still got his toy from the 80s in our house because he loves Return of the Jedi so much. And if we're talking about kids, this is my kids' second favorite movie after The Phantom Menace because they love Ewoks. They have like a Lego video game where they get to play as Ewoks, and then they get to, like, at the end be Lando and blow up the Death Star. So they love it. This is, other than the fact that it doesn't have Darth Maul in it and a little baby Anakin, this would be their favorite movie.
Yeah, I love this film. I think one of the coolest things is the scene with Jabba. You get to see, whoa, man! We saw Luke, and he was kind of training, and he had just lost his arm, and then all of a sudden you see him come in, and he's force choking people. You're like, whoa, he is much more badass than he was in the last one. And then you see how he beats the Rancor. So the opening scene, it's definitely one of the best opening scenes in any opening first 30 minutes. Which, unlike, I think Rogue One, maybe the last 30 minutes, maybe the best of any Star Wars overall. And then we get to see at the very end and redeem his father, and then you get, the cool thing is you get to know the Emperor a little bit. We saw one little flash of him, Lord Vader, in Empire, and then that's it. But we're like, dang, who is this guy? And you finally got to learn, and man, this guy's better. This guy's more hardcore than Vader. We'd never seen anybody that was more powerful than Vader. So that was pretty epic. So yeah, this is my This is my third favorite. I like Empire, The New Hope, and this. So it's a really, really great film.
I love this movie. It's a fun movie, but I would say it's my least favorite of the OG. It's actually number 4 for me. I had it behind Rogue One. I can remember a time. What's that about? I can remember a time when people listed their top 3 favorites, and this was always last. So, but I like it. It's fun. And you know what? If you watch Skeleton Crew, and the kids ask what's a concubine, just say remember Leia and the beginning of Return of the Jedi. That's a concubine. But no, it's a fun movie. I would say my only complaint is I think Luke goes into Gary Stu territory. He's almost like, especially on the sail barge when he's like doing tricks and like the way he jumps off the plank. To me, that was just a little bit.
But it was an epic kick. I mean, that made it all.
Yeah.
But to me, I love it. I think it's great. I think it's fun. Leia and Han finally come together. The only thing that bothers me is when Luke says you're my sister, it's like, yeah, I've always known. It's like, do you
That's what she figured out though, was when they made out. She's like,
yeah.
It's like when Marty McFly kisses his mom. She's like, kissing you is like kissing my brother.
Yeah, it's my least favorite of the OG, but I love it. So
this was the first one I saw in the theater when it came out. The first other two I saw after, but this is the first one I saw in the theater.
And
this is the only one I've never seen in the theater. I've never seen this one in the theater. Yeah.
I know I told the story 1,000 times, but when I went to see it in the theater, it had been out for like 3 weeks, and there was still a line. And Superman 3 was out at the same time. And I went with 2 other girls, and we said, if we can't get into Return of the Jedi, we'll see Superman 3. I said, we'll 3 for Return of the Jedi. And they said, yes, but you can't sit together. Fine. This is like the 10th time.
You say that to someone like my daughter who's 18, or one of my little or younger. The line. What are you talking about?
But you don't just reserve it.
Yeah, the line. We'll do what? We just go on. It's just.
As soon as we got our tickets, the guy behind me said 2 for Return of the Jedi, and the guy said we just sold the last 3 tickets.
I remember those days were the worst. I hated those lining up to get him. And the worst was when I remember seeing Ninja Turtles lining up with my dad, and they came over, they're like, nah, we're done. And we're like, oh my God, what are you going to do? All right, and number 1, any guesses?
The Last Jedi.
Caravan of Courage. The Empire Strikes Back. You know what? As much as I hate this is number 1, only because it's been number 1 all but I think 1 or 2 of the times we've done it. Other than the fact that it's always number 1, and I wish we had a new number 1, it is probably New Hope is probably the best one, but this is the best sequel ever made. The only reason why I would say it's not as good as New Hope ultimately is because you need a New Hope and you need Return of the Jedi for this. But it is a phenomenal movie and it does something that sequels aren't. The sequels suck usually because they try to recreate the first movie, right? Like you're just watching them retread what you did. But this one was like, it kind of took them on this other adventure, and they separate them, and you learn more about the lore. And they went all out on this one, and it was a kind of a new take on it as well. Like it didn't feel like it feels like a New Hope, but it doesn't feel like a New Hope. And it's such a good movie. But I think the one thing that is really lacking is Ewoks. And but other than that, it's honestly like when you watch it, it's pretty freaking flawless as a movie. Like Lando, like they bring in this new character. Like we're talking about the sequels with like Rose, and I never felt like she kind of blended in that well. But Lando just comes in effortlessly and steals like the show. And there's a twist, and then there's a twist, and you're like, and he just works. And like this, everything in this movie works. They're like, you know what? Anthony Daniels isn't going to be in the suit the whole time. We're just going to throw 3PO on Chewbacca's back for half of it. And you're like, yeah, it works. Like everything they do in this movie works. It just needs Ewoks, or it would get a 10 out of 10. For now, it's like a 3. Brock, let's go to you.
I mean, without this movie, then we don't spend the next 40 years being like, what's the twist going to be? What's going to happen? Like, which maybe ruined everything for Star Wars after that, but it's just sort of like, yeah, it's, it has the most misquoted quotes of all time in movie history. It's got tauntauns, that's pretty sweet, and they smell just as bad on the inside as they do on the outside. It's great. And then of course Yoda, like, coming in, like, this puppet looks real. You think he's a real thing, and it's just sort of giving us more into what the Force was. So it's just like, it's a no-brainer. This is number 1. So yeah.
Desi?
So for Christmas this year, my kids got a Darth Vader helmet as one of their toys. And it has little sayings on it. So one of the sayings is, join me and together we can rule the galaxy. And then it stops. It doesn't say the father and son, but I always follow that up with as mother and son. I also named my son Luke, partially because I wanted to be able to, when he came out in the hospital and I held him in my arms the first time, the first thing I looked down and I said to him was, I am your mother. Yeah. I will say that in general, I hate sequels. And every time Disney releases like Frozen 5 or whatever they're on now, Moana 2, I'm like, oh my God, why? Sequels are never good. Sequels always suck. Why do they keep making sequels? There's going to be a Toy Story 5. Toy Story 4 was terrible. Just stop with all of these sequels. Inevitably, someone always says, yeah, but what about Empire Strikes Back? What about that? Okay. You had one perfect sequel. And what I loved about it was that it wasn't a rehash. Unlike The Force Awakens, which is basically a rehash of A New Hope. This was new. It was fresh. They could have done it again. They could have just had like Death Star 2 in this movie. And I'm glad that they didn't. I'm glad that they went in a new direction with it. And it's also part of why I like The Last Jedi, is because that one is not just a rehash and it goes in a different direction than the first movie. Some of the things that people hate about The Last Jedi, if you're watching these movies in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you come to this one, number 5, and you're like, what? Why is Yoda just a hermit by himself, just closed himself off? Why wouldn't he want to train Luke? Why is he being like this? Why is he being so stubborn? I would expect that when he went to go see Yoda, Yoda would have trained him. Why is he acting like this? People have those issues with Luke. They didn't have it with Yoda. I'm just saying. But I love this movie. I understand why it's number 1, even though I still think The Last Jedi should be number 1.
Oh, yeah. And I love this movie. I always said that the sequels, if they had come out, like if they'd never made the originals and the sequels were the first 3, they would be looked up as some of the greatest trilogy of all time. But because it has against them the 40 years of the EU and all that stuff, and we know so much more, I think that's one of the reasons they're not looked at that way and compared to the original, because the original didn't have any of that stuff. So we really, and like you said, it is very similar. It's an older when you start looking at the movies, but it's just because there was so much other lore that the sequels had to deal with. That's hard for some people to let go of when back then they didn't know anything. But it definitely is true that they do have their comparisons. I just like the beginning because you like see Luke use the Force and he pulls the lightsaber, like, whoa, man, he's actually doing it, because you'd only seen, Obi-Wan just occasionally do the little flip thing and and mind trick, but that was about it. But he's pulling stuff, and we really didn't know much about it. And then Han was so great, and then you see And then, like you said, Lando. I mean, you're like, he's your friend. He just led you to Darth Vader, you know. But yeah, I just love it. It's my favorite one, and actually, Frozen 2 is pretty solid. It's not bad. Has more lore. It really builds up the lore. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Really?
Desi, let it go.
Yeah.
I like 2.
Frozen 3 is gonna be. Oh,
I don't know
out.
what 3 will be, but 2 you like it a lot. But no, I love that. Yeah, my favorite one, and so definitely awesome.
My favorite Frozen is Olaf's Christmas Adventure. I watch that a lot. Every Christmas I watch it. Heidi?
Yeah, this was also my number one. I would not only argue that this is the greatest Star Wars movie of all time, the greatest sequel of all time, but it's probably one of the greatest movies of all time. It's almost, I think, perfect. I will agree with Brock. It almost ruined Star Wars because now we have to have a big twist all the time. And yeah, Return of the Jedi didn't help because we had a big twist in Return of the Jedi as well. I mean, what's not to love about it? It's what I liked about episode 5 of Skeleton Crew. Like, there was a lot of it was funny, but it just ended on a dark note. And I like the fact that it didn't have to have a happy ending. You know, you expect a Star Wars movie, you would almost assume that it would have a happy ending like the original, and this one didn't, and it wasn't afraid to go there. And I think it maybe even started that trend of no longer having to have happy endings in movies.
Yeah.
I just think it's great. You got Lando, smoothest man in the galaxy. For some, you got the introduction of Boba Fett. In my case, it's just the expansion of Boba Fett because I got the introduction during the holiday special.
Heidi's an OG. Heidi went into the movie being like,
old gal.
Oh no. Heidi went into this movie being like, we're getting more Boba Fett. Remember from the holiday special? Live action Boba Fett. I can't wait.
And yeah, so my first ever action figure was the Funko Pop, but yeah, my first ever action figure was the Bespin Leia, and I lost her gun in the TIE Fighter like 2 seconds after opening her up.
I will say my kids asked today if they could have a Boba Fett helmet instead of Darth Vader.
Oh, wow.
No,
Actually,
you get Darth Vader.
And now they're at.
I think Boba and Darth Vader were originally going to be brothers or something.
Boba Fett was going to be Kitster. Can we go into that theory from?
Not. No, your favorite. Who's your no? Not Ben Quintanero. And what's his name?
Benny Quad.
Yeah, Benny Quad. Yeah.
He's the reason why these movies exist, because if someone didn't sabotage his pod, he would have won the pod race, and none of this would have happened.
Nothing would happen.
So we have Benny Quads to thank for all of this. He is the greatest Star Wars character of all time.
And I love the love story between Han and Leia, how they're bickering at the beginning and kind of just goes into a love story. And like I said, it's what I loved about this last episode of Skeleton Crew. I said it's just so funny. There's just one crack up after the other, but it ends on a dark note, and it's not for the. It's like setting you up. You think everything's gonna be great, and then nope.
It's good story.
When he turned the saber on and it fell, that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, that has been our 2025 ranking Star Wars. Lots of surprises there. We weren't expecting the Mando and Grogu movie to be so high on the list. But we'll see in 2 years where that one lands. That'll be the first Star Wars movie ever based off of a television show. We've had one based off of a crawl and based on a character, but never one based off of a television show. So we'll see how that plays out. Any surprises, guys? You guys free for all right now before we wrap up. Any surprises, unless anything you wish changed? Desi, don't say it.
Don't say what? The Last Jedi should have been number one.
No.
I'm glad that it beat out the Rise of Skywalker, and I'm also glad that A New Hope beat The Force Awakens.
Anybody else say anything?
I was shocked how low A New Hope was.
If the Grogu and Mando film has Bothans, then it's number 1.
You're an easy
Finally.
Yeah, I've been waiting. Brock, anything?
No, I mean, these rankings kind of fly out of my mind each at the second we finish recording. So it's like, whoa! But I'm like, oh right, like Attack of the Clones was higher in past years. I can't remember, so it's like, but
Not much higher. Yeah.
But so like, it would be actually kind of fun to watch the original one we did when we only had like 9 movies. So it's like, oh,
and only like 9 votes too. There was 9 movies and 9 votes. Yeah. Actually, I don't know if we had 9 movies when we did the first one. We had 6. We had 8 movies when we did the first one. I think. I think it was after
Last Jedi.
No, Rogue One. So
I think,
we would have,
or after Solo.
So it would have been after Rogue One was our first rankings.
Okay. I think I became a patron because I didn't like how you guys were ranking them, and I was like, no, I'm going to have a say in this next time.
Yeah, it's been fun doing these. Like, we don't take them seriously. I say it's definitive because
I take it seriously.
Yeah, George Lucas calls us. But I mean, we love all these movies for Ewoks and other reasons, and it's just fun to get together on New Year's Day and talk about it. But that's everything. Thank you, Heidi, Desi, Sooner. Thank you so much for joining Brock and I today. Yeah. We hope you have a great 2025. We're all hungover from the tequila shots we did last night as we prepped for this show. We did our prep for this leading up to the ball drop at midnight.
I had a lot of spiked blue milk. So.
Spiked blue milk. Grogu, special guest from Grogu's here. And the last thing I want to say to start the new year, Happy New Year, everybody watching.
Happy New Year.
And Brock, you were always scum.
Rebel scum.
Scumbags, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rebel Scum Podcast, for all the latest videos.